The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Para X, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
It's coming.
All these voices. All these voices.
They're not yours. You had no right to them when you were alive, and you have no right to them when you're dead. That's what it sounded like. Good, so you know who I am. And then you know I'm not playing. You're going to let those women go. In Jesus' name, you're going to let those women go.
Is there a demon here watching us right now? Watching us right now.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Staring into the Abyss. I am your host, horror author James Hershey Jr. With me, as always, my co-host, old boy James Ash. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you guys tonight?
Tonight's show is going to be fun and interesting. I've been seeing a lot of videos on YouTube, and there's a lot of stuff on TikTok about this subject. And a lot of them are titled like Jesus versus Hercules, or Jesus versus this god or that god or whatever. And essentially what they're doing, we'll start with Hercules, and we might get into some of the other ones as well. Essentially what they're saying is that the story of Jesus is directly copied from the story of Hercules. That what the early Christians did was they took the story of Hercules and all the stuff that he did and everything, and they just basically changed it a little bit and made it about another guy and called it Jesus, and that's what the Bible is based on, the New Testament at least. That's the basic gist of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through several of the main points that they make, and we'll just kind of compare and contrast, and we'll see. You know, we'll see how this shakes out. I mean, I already know what I think about it, and I already know what the answer is to this one, but it'll be fun to kind of walk through it a little bit. So the first thing they say is that both were the son of God. Okay? Jesus obviously is the son of the God of Abraham, the one and only God. And then Hercules was the son of Zeus. Okay? Now to that I would say, but only one is actually the son of God, because there is only one God. So Zeus would be not God. Zeus would be what they would call it, like a demigod, right? And essentially, if you go through like Genesis 6 and you hear about the story of the giants, right? That there were giants on the earth in those days. That's what we would call the Nephilim. And I have a whole show, What Are Demons and Where Do They Come From, that we did on the giants, the whole story of them. But essentially, the angels that came down to mate with human women, and they stayed here on earth. They began drinking human blood and getting blood sacrificed to stay here on earth in a physical form, to leave their spiritual form and take on a physical form. That is all the old gods of Greek mythology, Norse mythology, all that. A lot of those demanded blood sacrifice and stuff like that, because that's how they kept their form. Okay, so Zeus wasn't God. Zeus was a fallen angel that portrayed himself as a god to people, to be worshipped and to get sacrifices and stuff like that. Okay, so that's the first point that they do. Doesn't line up. Okay, one's the son of God, one's not. The second one is the Immaculate Conception. In the story of Jesus, we know that Mary got pregnant with Jesus as a virgin, and she had never known a man before that point. In the story of Hercules, they say that it's the same because he was the son of Zeus. That Zeus came down as a shower of gold, I believe it was in the myth, and impregnated his mother, and that's how he was born. But the obvious difference in those two tales is that in the Christian tale, Jesus is born from a virgin. Okay, Mary never had sex with God. Like, God didn't come down as anything and have sex with Mary. Okay? In the story of Hercules, Zeus came down disguised as gold or something, and possibly essayed his mother. Because I don't know if she was a willing participant in this whole adventure. It never really says. So that's obviously a product of a physical insemination, not a miraculous conception. Okay? So that's another difference there. They say that it's the same. It's not the same at all. Immaculate conception of a virgin and potentially an SA at the worst, and at the best a consensual act, but still a physical act that created Hercules. Okay, the next thing that they talk about is the miracles of Jesus, and they compare those to the feats of strength of Hercules. They call those miracles because he was super strong. But if you really think about that, there's no comparison there at all. I mean, Jesus healed the sick. He raised people from the dead. He turned water into wine. He walked on water. Right? He did all of those things. What did Hercules do? He was strong. He was able to beat up some monsters. That's pretty much it. You know, there was no real miracles that Hercules ever performed. He was just a strong guy. You know, now granted he might have been stronger than a normal man, but still, it's not miraculous in any way. He didn't do anything that defied the laws of physics. He was just really strong. So once again, there's a comparison that they make that they say is the same that simply isn't. You have the miracles of Jesus, which defy the laws of physics. I mean, remember, he took a tiny bit of bread and a couple fish, ripped them up in a basket, and fed a crowd of 5,000. And everybody ate until they were stuffed. And there was plenty left over. Okay, that's a miracle. That defies the laws of physics. You know, he walked on water. Water that they were sailing a boat on. So you know it was deep enough for a boat to sail without going aground. And he walked on it. That defies the laws of physics. He rose people from the dead. He healed the sick. Miraculously healed the blind and lepers and all kinds of stuff. Instantly. That defies the laws of physics. Those are miracles. Being strong and be able to fight something and whoop its ass and kill it, that's not a miracle. That's just being really, really strong. Okay? So there's really no comparison there. So we got both are Son of God. We see that that's not the same. We've got the Immaculate Conception. We see that's not the same. And we've got the miracles. We see that's not the same. Okay? Now on top of that, Jesus Christ was persecuted, scourged, beaten severely, crucified, died on the cross for our sins, rose again after 3 days, and was seen walking around, talking to people. He was seen by over 400 witnesses. And many, many sources, dozens of sources, not just the Bible. You have all of the major historians of the time period. People that we look to for all of our known history. People like Phineas the Elder. Okay? People that we look at what they wrote down to tell us what happened in the past. These are respected historians from that time period that talk about Jesus being crucified and coming back from the dead and being witnessed by over 400 people. Okay? So Jesus' death and resurrection is one of the most witnessed and evidence-backed occurrences in history. A lot of history that we know today comes from a single source or 2 or 3 sources at best. This comes from dozens of sources with well over 400 witnesses. Okay, so it is way more evidence-backed than the majority of history is. So we know that it happened. The story of Hercules is myth. It was written as Greek mythology. There is no direct evidence that Hercules ever even existed, much less that he performed any miracle. He didn't come back from the dead. He didn't die for our sins. None of that stuff. Okay, none of that is backed up historically whatsoever. But the story of Jesus is 100% backed up historically. So, once again, that is a big, big difference. So you can see, just going through those major points, that this theory that everybody's talking about really doesn't hold any water. They are not the same person. They are not the same story at all. And you hear this kind of stuff a lot when they talk about old religions, that, oh, well, this religion had this myth, or this religion had this myth, and the Bible talks about that too. Therefore, the Bible copied it. A great example of this is the flood story. Pretty much every religion, every myth, every civilization has a flood story. Now, does that mean that the Bible copied the flood story from one of those old religions? No. That means that the Bible is talking about an event that actually happened. And all of these other stories are also talking about an event that actually happened. The takeaway from that isn't that the Bible isn't true. The takeaway from that is, if everybody says this happened, it must have happened. And not only do we have all of the old religions and Christianity and Judaism and Islam, all of those agree that the flood happened, but also we have scientific evidence that the flood happened. We know scientifically and historically that there was a point in time where the majority of the earth was flooded, and it wiped out pretty much everybody except for a very small group of people. We know that from the studies on DNA that they've done, where they've been able to trace the DNA of everybody living to a small group of people around that time period that the flood happened. That is scientific evidence that the story of Noah actually took place. Because it was just his family that was left, remember? A small group of people. And they did the same studies on animals, and they found that the majority of the animals, the land animals, same thing. That they come from a small group or a single pair, one of the two. They can't really be that specific with the science. It's one or the other. It's a very small group or a single pair, is what the study said, around the exact same time period. So that tells you that during that period of time, the earth flooded and it wiped out 99% of everything on earth. That there was only a tiny fraction of everything left, which is what the story of Noah tells us. So not only do we have every old religion and myth and civilization in agreement that it happened, but also science is in agreement that it happened. Okay? So if you ask me, that lends a lot of credence to the fact that, hey, here's a book that talks about that. And it talks about a lot of things that we have learned now are true. For the purposes of this video, we were talking about the story of Jesus. Most evidence-backed historical account ever. In the history of ever, pretty much. We know beyond a shadow of a doubt that this happened. Now when I say that, I'm not obviously talking about something that happens today, because everybody can see that it happened today. I'm talking about in ancient history, there's more sources for the resurrection of Christ than almost any other event. So we know for a fact that that happened. We don't, however, know for a fact that Hercules even existed. All we have is the old tales. He's not really in any histories, unless you count the mythologies as histories, which some people might, but there's not the level of documentation of it. And what we do know from the story of Hercules, it does not match the story of Jesus whatsoever. Now, there's talk about some of the Norse gods match the story of Jesus as well. Old boy was talking about that earlier. I'll let him get into that when he comes on. But there's all kinds of stories like that. But none of the stories have the same documentation that the story of Jesus has. None of those stories were witnessed by as many people and documented by as many historians as the story of Jesus. So, as I said, to this theory, I say it's not true. And it's pretty obvious it's not true. Any thinking person can look at it. Even if you don't believe, you can still look at the evidence and say, well, this was obviously a human being that lived and was crucified, and that all these people say came back from the dead. Now, whether you believe he's the Son of God is up to you, but there's no doubt that that happened. The historical record proves that he lived and that he was crucified. And the historical record proves that he rose. And he was seen by a lot of people. They wrote about it. Even people that don't like Christians, that don't even believe in Jesus, wrote about it. And they mocked him. They said, look at these guys. They're worshiping this supposed God who was crucified. Now, I don't know if you understand, but crucifixion is more than just a horrible way to die. In that time period, the reason they crucified people was because it was one of the most degrading ways to die. Not only was it extremely painful, but it was reserved for the lowest of the low. I mean, you're talking scumbag thieves and just horrible people got crucified. So to get crucified was like an insult. You know, it wasn't a dignified way to go. You did that to scumbag criminals. You didn't do that to upper class people. You know, so them mocking Jesus for being crucified was saying, look, you think this guy's God, he got crucified, so he's just a low-life little piece of crap. You know, that's essentially what they're saying. You know, so even out of the dozens of historians that documented his resurrection, not all of them were Christians. Not all of them liked Jesus at all. Most of them were mocking him. Now, they can never really explain how he did it. I mean, you tell me, if you're not God, how do you die, go to the grave for 3 days, and then come back to life? Only man I've ever heard of that pulled that off. I mean, that's something that David Blaine, people like that would be damn jealous of. You know? That's a hell of a trick, ain't it? To actually die and come back. And we know he died because the Romans say he did. They made sure. Remember when they went through and they would break the legs of everybody at night on the crosses to make sure that they couldn't get away? And when they went to break Jesus' leg, they said, no, he's already dead. Please don't do that. And so they took that spear and they jammed it up in his side, up into his lungs. And blood and water came out. I mean, his heart had stopped. He wasn't breathing no more. He was dead. They made sure he was dead. Because the last thing the Romans wanted was him popping back up and making him look stupid. And not only did they make sure he was dead when they took him off the cross, but they wanted to make damn sure nothing like that happened. So they put guards in front of the tomb to make sure that he didn't come back, that nobody came and got the body and claimed that he rose. They were worried about that because Jesus himself said he was God. So they wanted to disprove that notion. So they put guards in front of the tomb to make sure that he didn't come back. And he still came back. Okay, so we know all that is true because the Romans wrote it down. It's in their histories. We know that the wife of Pontius Pilate believed Jesus Christ was God. And she tried to convince Pilate not to have him killed. That's why Pilate did everything in his power to try to stop it. That's why he offered to let Jesus go, but they chose Barabbas, the murderer, instead. The crowd did, because the crowd was egged on by the Pharisees, the Jewish Pharisees. And they wanted to put Jesus to death because he threatened their rule. He went against what they said, and they couldn't have that. All of that is documented in much more than just the Bible. And none of these other gods that they talk about, or heroes in mythologies that they talk about, none of them have that level of documentation. None of them can compare to the story of Jesus, because they're just not the same. You know, yes, you have heroes doing heroic shit. That's what mythology is. But it's not the story of Jesus, you know. And I enjoy mythology. I've studied Greek mythology. I've studied Roman mythology. I enjoy it. I enjoy the Norse mythologies. They're good stories. They're fun. But that doesn't make them God. I can enjoy a Dean Koontz book. That doesn't mean it's reality. You know, so that's what I have to say about it. That's what I think. I'm gonna throw over to Old Boy and see what he has to say, and he can get into more what he was talking about before the show with me about the Norse mythology. Go ahead, brother.
It was okay. It was I meant to say Greek. And the Norse too, but I have to look that one. The Greek was Dionysus, the god of wine. It was similar to the story of Jesus, and they both were shunned from their villages at the time, and they both were well. Jesus was crucified; he was torn apart by the Titans, but he was resurrected just like Jesus. A lot of scholars, some think that that's where the stories are, but the difference was they both did miracles and stuff like that, but he was more of a demigod, and it wasn't like Jesus. He was born of from his mom, Dionysus, and it was Zeus. But Jesus was supposed to. I don't know the story about she. I know she got. She had Mary had the baby Jesus, but is it? I know the what the fuck is it? The Holy Spirit's in Jesus too, but that was what the difference was. There was a little bit different storyline, but there's some similarity to it, but there's a lot different ways they died. Now, I don't believe Hercules was Jesus. Um, I just believe that people are again. I seen this on TikTok, so it's another one of these urban legends that just start. Next to there's people who really thought Godzilla should pay reparations to the Japanese. I remember when they did that and people really fucking believed it. And I thought it was a joke and it really wasn't. So, you know, it could happen. But no, I don't believe Hercules is the son of God or is Jesus. I mean, they're totally different stories altogether. Maybe now Samson and Hercules, there's very similar to that. Other than he cut his hair, but Hercules had it. They were very similar in strength. Now, if you would told me that, then I can understand that. James probably could understand that one because Samson and Hercules do have a lot similar things that they've done with feats of strength and in fighting monsters and giants. They both did it, and there was a lot of similarities to it. Now, no, Jesus, not at all. There's nothing that Hercules did save people, but in another way, he beat the hell out of people and killed things. And Jesus actually was opposite, wanted to save things and love people. So there was a whole different storyline. It doesn't even make any sense. I don't know where these stories come from, but it is what it is. It is. In Dionysus makes more sense. If you read the story, it is similar. But I just, you guys got to watch this TikTok shit. None of it's true. 99% of it isn't true. And I think this is what's ruined the world. I'm going to tell you what people, the world's bad. It's not. You know what the difference is? It's easier to see what was going on anyway. People have always been bullied. People do dumb shit all the time. We just don't see it. It's just there's more people in the world now than there was 20 fucking years ago. The point is, stop believing this shit. This is what we're talking about right here. This is the stuff that we've been talking about for years. If you want to know if something's real, you know what you do? You go research it. Not on Google, the first AI thing it comes up. I'm talking about actually research it. Don't take the word of TikTok, because I'm going to tell you, that's the problem. People believe this shit, and they actually believe it. The fucking world's coming in next week. That never does. Every other week, Man from Mars come out. Then it's Godzilla versus King Kong. Was it a real story from another? It's just bullshit. It was just as much bullshit as that lady who tried to get me on her show and think I was a demonic reptilian and had BL on my arm. It's my daughter's name. And it was just, and thought I was going to, and we were going to do a parody about that. I'm from the planet Shim Sham. That's how crazy people believe. Oh, and she really fucking thought this. And this is like Chicken Little. You remember that story? If I and it keeps going on and bullshit coming, and then they didn't want to believe it when the real shit hits. They didn't believe him anymore. Like the boy that cried wolf too much when the wolf really came. They didn't believe him. They didn't take it serious and fucking buy. This is people. Come on. I just we have evolved from this. I get it. People have difference of opinion. I get it. We all have different religious beliefs. And I get it. We used to be able to just sit down and talk about it, not kill each other. It should never be like this. It should have never got like this. And we're doing the same shit that we did before we even had TVs or anything. It's always rumor and somebody fucking dies and it's not even the real truth, or something happens to somebody over bullshit. And this is the stuff that happens. And this is the same shit we've always done, and we still fall for it. It's crazy. It's just some of these stories we got, and I like doing these shows, but this was just. Does somebody have nothing to do in their fucking life? And I'm not making fun of you, to just do this. One day, I just think Jesus and Hercules is going to be the same, and I'm just going to say, are they the same? No, if you read the story, they're not. Samson and Hercules would have been more understanding, but no, they're not. It's like saying Super Mario and Sonic the Hedgehog. I'm not making fun of any beliefs. I'm just showing you an example. No. And saying they're the same, they're not. Not at all. He's a fucking plumber and eats fucking mushrooms and gets big. And Sonic goes running real fast and he's a porcupine or something. It's blue and he runs fast. And Jim Carrey is his arch enemy. But I'm just saying, come on. You know, I like doing these shows. You guys makes us laugh because we get a laugh because we still shit doesn't amaze me, and I thought it wouldn't, and it still does 10 years later doing these shows. We hear some of the stupidest shit that I've ever heard. Like the one guy, it's going into Atlantis, and this cave opens, and all of a sudden there's all these moons, and it's all the way. He goes through like this tunnel, and then he's into the magical mystery land right under the behind the big giant wall in Atlantis, or no, in Antarctica. Sorry, come on, dude. If you believe this shit, we're better than this, and we're not. This is, and I'm gonna say it's funny, but you got to realize people died over this shit, because like with witch hunting, 94, and even he will tell you he's done this shit. Not in Europe. A lot of people get what happened in Europe. A lot of people were murdered. Now, what happened in the United States was a little bit different. It's not as the number isn't, but it did happen in Europe. But people died because of stupid shit because somebody believed something, and it did. We did, and the werewolf people died for nothing. We weren't supposed to do that. Never. We weren't supposed to torture people and women to the. You see what they did to her? Of course, they're going to admit they did it. We were never supposed to do that. And this is the same shit we're doing. It's just in a different way. And it's crazy that people still believe in it. You can believe whatever you want, though. You know what? I love my fans. I love my fucking fans. You know, look at what I believe in. I'm one of the most fucking unique people in this world, and I am. And there ain't really nobody really like me. I am one of a million, and I'm not being vain, but I am, because I am. I've always been like that, but I don't think I'm better than anybody. I love my fans. I love doing the show with him. This is a very unique pairing that works, and most people can't believe that, but that's what happens. Just like how we're not supposed to. It's just people don't believe how we can get along, and it's easy, but we do these shows for you guys because we get these but it keeps us going because it gets us to say how ridiculous some of this shit is. Next, what's next? I want to hear what's next. The octopuses are going to take over the world because they said it, but they did do that thing that you saw that they said the next species, if we go away, they're going to be the next to evolve, because you know that octopuses, they don't know where they really came from. Like they're just. I have my opinions, and you do too. I think they were brought here. I think there were some things that were brought here. If you look at them, they don't look like normal creatures. The silly fan, all this shit. If you look at how some of these creatures look, they looked alien, and I think they just went somewhere else. But that's why I said I love doing this show. I love talking about this shit. But some of this stuff, man, like and it's probably like, well, James just wanted to talk about Jesus. James talks about Jesus every fucking show. What's new? You got to realize if you think that bothers you, then you shouldn't be listening to anything and just go sit in the box, because I don't get offended. I'm like one of the most independent person you meet. I'm a gypsy fucking. I live a gypsy lifestyle. I'm not a gypsy. I don't want to take that back, but I'm more of a nomad, pagan, and heathen, whatever you want to call me. And I love my life. I love the life I live. I wish they would do shows on the people I hang out with, and I want them to, because I want people to see that the other world's there, that we still run by the old ways, and you honor your word. You don't, like, I honor his word, and that's why I talk to him, because he knows what he's talking about. I may not agree with what his opinions are sometimes, and that's fine. He doesn't agree with mine, but sometimes, but we get along perfectly well. It's what's crazy is about it is you would think that me and him would hate each other, and we've had some heated arguments, and we don't. We never do. I just think it's funny. I've seen some heated shit that had nothing even to do with me. That I was like, oh shit, I don't know. Then 2 days later, like nothing happened. He just said it wasn't my fault. And you have to realize some people can't handle when they get into it, and it goes too far. And sometimes it's happened. We used to do a show, I forgot what it was called. And we did a couple shows, and they were really well. It was about stuff that was starting to go on right when Trump was running for president. And I remember one of my ex-girlfriends did a show with him, and then one of our guys who did the show, he was African American, and he did a show with James. And they both explained certain things, and it actually really went well, both sides of it. And you got to hear both sides of it, and now they're doing it. But we did that. That was something that was cool that we did. But this is some of the stuff, guys, that we do is like this kind of shit. Like, just like the robot stuff, guys. You know what? I know that the Terminator thing is something quite talked about on this show, especially when it comes to AI. I get it. If Terminator happens, you know what? It's our fault, and we deserve it. It's like we deserve everything we get because we get told before, and it happens. We get told every time, and we just don't give a fuck. It's crazy. If you read the Bible, if you believe in God, you're getting told. If you believe in God, and I'm just saying that, in any other Bibles, you know something's going to happen. It may not be similar, the same, but something's going to happen, and it may fucking very well happen. But that's his opinion, and that's cool. But I know he knows what he's talking about. Hercules, I've never in my fucking life, and or heard in Christian, like, never comparing them together. Samson, yes, no. I just, come on. You guys are the robot shit and this and the flat earth thing. Oh yeah, somebody thought wearing outside and said the world's flat because of something. I don't know. He was doing something. He showed, oh, see that moon? And so I was like, the world's not flat. Dude, I'm just, and I'm not saying you're stupid. I'm just saying, I don't know anymore, man. Like, I thought we would learn lessons, and it's just like humans never learn. If you look at any history, whatever we believe, we just never learn. Never fucking learn. If you believe in God, don't eat the apple. Crunch. Well, let's be fair, the devil or demon, we don't know what it either or was, but one of them did, interfered in that with Eve, and Adam bit the apple, but Adam was the one who was first born, and he knew better. And that's what the sin was, really, if you look at it. And we were told not to do it, just like in every other religion, told not to do shit, and we do it anyway. We don't listen. We never have. We never will. We're too pig-headed. We just don't get along, and we never will. We're just crazy. It's chaotic, but it's like we're trying to control chaos, and it never gets controlled, but it needed to be in a healthy medium, but it just gets too chaotic now. Everything's so chaos. I believe in chaos very much. I live a chaotic life, and I always have. And that's the way I like my life. And people are going to say, well, why you're talking about this? But I'm just showing you examples why we're doing this show. But I'm going on to what he was saying. And I believe that a lot of people get these carried away stories like with Hercules and Jesus. Next it will be Loki and the devil. That's next. I mean, and that would make sense a little bit. It's kind of similar. Loki and the devil. If but I would kind of believe that more than I would believe Hercules, or what would be another one you could do? Triton, and what was the other one? Triton. That was what his name was, right? Triton. You know a lot about Greek mythology. Oh, Poseidon. Poseidon and Triton. That pretty similar, dude. Like that's another one that you could think about. But yeah, there wasn't much to talk about because James talked a lot because he gets into the religious part of it, and I know he knows that part of it, but I even know he got to talk about what he wanted to talk about. I know he didn't want to. We just thought this was a funny show. Is like he didn't even have to preach knowledge to me about religion. Oh, I already knew it was bullshit anyway. I know. I know. I'm not going to sit here and say I read the Bible theory out. I've read it a couple times. I know the stories. I know. I don't. I can't do like him by fucking proverb and Revenant. I don't remember stuff. You guys got to remember. It takes a lot to get stuck in my head, and that's how it rolls. And that's the disability I have. And that's why I talk off, but I really know what I'm talking about. But I wouldn't be on the show. But he knows what he's talking about on that part of it. And he could have told me in one sentence I knew what he was going to tell me, but he's right. It's bullshit. I'm not saying people that just come on, man. Just go study stuff first before you say something. I'm just saying that before I just go look it up and see the difference between Hercules and Jesus, and you'll understand what we're talking about. Like God and Zeus is very similar, and Odin, I get those. They're pretty similar. Um, and any other gods like that. The devil and Loki was probably similar in some ways. Apollo was supposed to be um, the devil, the morning star or whatever. But I don't know, man. Some of this stuff is getting too much. It's going to be, but it's never going to end. TikTok, I don't know how it's going to work. I know they're going to change it in September. But I mean, a lot of this stuff I hear, people will come up and tell me shit that I'm like, yes, Trump made a new law that we're all going to get money and you get to claim the kids if you get child support, pay child support. Nope, he never fucking said that. And people are making this like with Ozzy who passed away. That's another thing. I want to rest in peace, Ozzy. I went to his concert 4 times. I like Ozzy. Sucks what happened. But that being said, I'm going to throw it over to James. I really don't have much else to say about it, but he'll tell you more he knows a lot about mythology and stuff, though. There you go, brother.
Yeah, the stuff about Ozzy I've been seeing is kind of disturbing. I actually knew Ozzy. I mean, we weren't buddies or anything like that. Don't get me wrong, but I went to a show and went backstage and met him and sat with him for a while and talked to him, and he was a hell of a nice guy. He was a truly kind and gentle person. His problem was all the demons. All the drugs and the alcohol and stuff like that was his major issue. But he wasn't what there's the image or the character that you're playing, and then there's the person. Make sense? And like his image was the Prince of Darkness and this evil, all this kind of stuff, but that wasn't who he actually was. He was. I mean, well, anybody that watched the Osbournes, what Ozzy actually was. But meeting him in person and sitting down and talking to him for a while, he was a hell of a nice guy. And so yeah, rest in peace, Ozzy. And the problem is, man, it's a content-driven world. And you got all these people on TikTok and YouTube, and they're peddling in bullshit. They're making all these videos, and they have to make something that sounds provocative and has like a clickbaity type title, so that people will want to watch it. So when you're making a video every day, which it used to be one a week is what the standard was, but now with TikTok, it's like every day you're putting out videos, sometimes multiple videos a day. So when you're putting out that much content, there's not that much stuff to talk about really. So you have to come up with just crazy shit. Or you'll see somebody's talking about something, somebody else will make the video and it does well, so then everybody copies it. So then next thing you know, you've got 100 people doing the same video, talking about the same shit, and none of them know anything. Because the unfortunate thing is, a lot of the people that are on YouTube and TikTok and that kind of thing are some of the dumbest people around. They don't know anything. They've never studied anything. Now, at the same time, you do have people on that are very, very smart and know what they're talking about. But their videos don't usually get the same kind of views that the dumb people get. Because the dumb people go on and talk all kinds of nonsense. And they have absolutely no idea what they're talking about. And they're sitting there acting like they know what they're talking about. And they'll sit there and recite stuff to you. But you can tell they're just reading it. You know, and they don't even know what the hell some of the words mean. Because they pronounce them wrong. You know, and you're like, you don't fucking know who this person is. You can't even say their name right. You know what I mean? You're going to sit there and tell me, dude, you're still in high school. You don't even, I mean, you don't know anything about any of this, you know? And that's what it is, man. That you say people never learn. It's that these people have literally never learned. They've never studied anything. The human race learns lessons, but the problem is the majority of the human race don't know anything because they're kept too busy. They don't have the time nor the inclination to study anything. You know, they just want to go to work, make their money, so they can come home and drink and hang out and watch a movie with their old lady or something. You know, they got kids to raise. They got shit to do. They don't have time to sit in a library and study shit. You know, some people like me, I'm a little bit different than most people. You know, I enjoy studying things. I spent a lot of my time growing up in libraries, just reading about all this stuff, you know. And, I mean, like you talk about Dionysus, you want to read some shit that'll curl your toes, man. Read about the cult of Dionysus. Dionysus, of course, was the god of wine and merriment and all that kind of stuff. But he had a cult of followers that were like a fertility cult that was just literally nothing but drunken orgies all the time. It was crazy, and people would travel long distances to go attend one of these drunken orgies because they thought that it would make them more fertile so that they could have children and all kinds of stuff. Like, there's a lot when you really start digging. I mean, that's a whole nother show we can do sometime, but look up the cult of Dionysus and some of the horrible treatment that some of those women got in the cult of Dionysus. And so even comparing those two is not a fair comparison, because on one hand you got Jesus, which is love and forgiveness of sin and all of that. And on the other hand, you have debauchery and drunken orgies where you're taking advantage of intoxicated women, and women are basically used as playthings. You know, a whole different situation. You know, and you were talking about Poseidon, the god of the seas. There's a lot of different stories about a lot of them. Like Poseidon is another one that would come and they would take advantage of women. You know, just like Zeus did. That's where the story of Medusa comes from, is Poseidon. You know, Medusa used to be a hottie. And she was so hot that Poseidon took an interest in her and decided he wanted her. So he came and he took her. And she tried to avoid him. She tried to hide out from him and actually went and hid in another goddess's temple to try to make sure that he didn't get her. And he got her anyway in the temple. He didn't give a damn. Now, see, this goddess wanted to get revenge. But she couldn't take on Poseidon because Poseidon's a badass, and she wasn't a badass. So instead, she took her revenge on the mortal, Medusa, and turned her into a snake-haired Gorgon, right? She wasn't that before. She was a beautiful woman. The story of Medusa, we did a show on the story of Medusa on Staring, is not the horror story that Clash of the Titans and other movies have made it out to be. It's actually a tragedy. It's a sad, sad tale of this woman who was just trying to be left alone. She didn't want any trouble. But this horny god wanted her, Poseidon, and she tried to avoid it, but he took her anyway. And then she had to bear the punishment for it. And she was made hideous. And anytime she looked at somebody, they turned to stone, so she couldn't even be with her own family anymore. She had to go and hide out all on her own somewhere. And still, people would come and try to kill her. And she'd end up turning them to stone. But she didn't want to. And in the story of Perseus from Clash of the Titans, when he went and killed her, the actual story isn't what they show in that movie. He's not sitting there with his shield and looking in the reflection so he can get her while she's all going to get you. No, she was asleep. She was laying there asleep, and he snuck up on her and butchered her while she slept. It's a horrible story. The actual tale of Medusa and Perseus. It's terrible. Absolutely terrible. I mean, this woman had a horrible life. And she didn't do anything wrong. And she's forever vilified. She's forever known as a monster. You know, and it's fucked up. If you ask me, it's terrible, man. You know? So, I mean, a lot of that you're talking about, old boy, is simply content. People have to do something to make their videos, to keep their numbers up, to keep people coming back to watch their channel. And the problem is when you get on and you give a long-winded talk about something that you're giving actual information, there's not as much of a market for that as there is a little 5-minute video or a 2-minute video where you're spouting fantastic bullshit. And then the problem is the people watching the videos, they have no idea either. They've never studied anything, so they don't know. They just believe what you say. And then they go around saying it. You know, and that's how this nonsense gets spread everywhere. And then somebody will get on and do a show that actually proves it wrong and gives the real story, but not many people will actually see it. So that bullshit that was put out there by influencers just kind of gets into the zeitgeist where people believe that that's the truth. And it isn't, and it's sad. You know, another thing that's sad is octopus, squid, like you were talking about. A lot of people say they're aliens. You know, that's what old boy was implying there. A lot of people say that they come from another planet. And think about that, man. That's got to suck for the octopus. Imagine you are the top species on your planet. Alpha, number one. The baddest of the bad, right? You're so good that you've defeated everything on your planet to the point to where you can focus on technology to begin to get into space. Some time goes by, you're successful, you're top of the food chain. Hey, we figured out how to travel across the cosmos. We found this little planet called Earth. 75% water. We could live there. It has everything we need. We could go there and we could take over this place. This will be great. I mean, the people that are there are idiots. They're wandering around comparing Hercules to Jesus. They're dumbass people. They don't know anything. They'll be easy to overcome. They're way smarter than they are. Not a problem at all. They travel all the way here. Insert themselves into our oceans. And what do? We catch them. We cut them up. We fry them. Bread them and fry them and eat them. Make little rings out of them. And we're munching on them watching a football game. Because that's what we do, man. We're dicks. You know? And it's got to be a raw deal for the octopus, man. They thought they were coming to take over another planet. They thought they were coming here and they were going to have this whole other planet that they could spread out on. And all this amazing stuff if they are aliens. And instead, we just made them our bitch. We're like, hey, you look tasty. Let me eat you for a while. We just cut them up and fry them and eat them. You know? Not so dominant, are they? You know, yeah, they're intelligent creatures. And they're amazing creatures, some of the stuff they can do. They can get into a little crack. They can flatten their whole body and swiggle into a little crack and get through. It's amazing the stuff that an octopus can do. But they can't avoid a net, apparently, because we catch them all the time and we just eat them. Because, you know, we are the dominant species here on Earth. We eat everything we want. We don't care. You know? So kind of a raw deal for the octopus. Trying to think of what else I wanted to talk about that old boy brought up. See, I got the cult of Dionysus. I talked about that. The other thing. You say that we never learn and we always screw up, right? That's exactly why Jesus died on the cross for us, brother. Is because we never learn. God tells us very plainly what we're supposed to do and not supposed to do. And what do? as human beings, every one of us, me included, we screw it up. We do dumb shit we're not supposed to do because we're stupid and we don't listen. So God had to send Jesus down. He had to die on the cross for us, pay for our sin so that we could go to heaven, because left to our own devices, not a single one of us would make it because we're stupid. That's what I think about that. So I think I've covered pretty much all the stuff I wanted to talk about. So I'm going to throw it back over to Old Boy and let him give his final sum up and shout outs and all that, and then we'll wrap this puppy up. Go ahead, brother.
And just so everybody knows, the reason I got off is I couldn't finish because I have acid reflux sometimes and it busted on me, so I had to get off. What I was saying is people are doing the AI of Ozzy's wife like holding his picture and he never even did it. That's how crazy it is. But that's what I wanted everybody to listen to. But that being said, I hope everybody enjoyed the show. It's a really fun show. I enjoyed it. Just like you said, just research a lot, like we were saying. If you like watching our show, go to YouTube and subscribe on James Hershey's YouTube page. If you want to see us on Spotify, go ahead and check us out on there. On YouTube also, you can see all our shows. Thank you, Parax Radio, every Sunday nights, 9 Pacific, 12 Eastern. And the best of Tuesday nights, 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern. And we're going to try to do something new with him. We're going to talk to him soon. That's coming down the road. If you want merchandise, go to teespringsstaringintheabyss.com and you get t-shirts, hats, all kinds of cool stuff. See, I don't know what else is on there. We can make whatever you guys want, though, really. We'll make some new stuff soon. Maybe. We'll think of some new ideas. But there's no face shirts are on there from the book. You guys want to check it out, go ahead. Thank you, guys. July's almost over, guys, and we try to do a show at least two to three times a week, a month now. We take a break here and there, but we're not going to do them all the time, unless we, coast to coast. I would love to get on there, and I've been seeing them sending stuff to me as a guest, like on their little chat thing. I want to throw it out there, coast to coast. If you listen to us, we would love to come on your show, just to come on and. Art Bell was one of our idols, and George Norrie, Ian, remember all those guys, and I would love to come on that show, and so would James. That's why we're doing this. Some of the reason we used to listen to that show. A lot of you guys have never heard of Art Bell, one of the greatest guys he used to live in Pahrump, and one of he's known for is somebody called flying over Area 51. In a little plane, and they weren't supposed to, and they called into his show, and it's one of the most memorable things on AM radio ever, and one of the, I guess, on radio of all time, top 25, I think it was like 17 or 18, and he called, and he was flying over Area 51, and then all of a sudden, they're shooting at me, and they shot him down. Never heard anything again from him. So that's where Art Bell got his fame from that, and other things like the art, remote viewing, and he had, Father Mayakai, guy was talked about vampires. Everything you think is real, it does. The church, the Catholic Church hides a lot of stuff, but that's another story we can talk to. But I'm glad you enjoyed the show, and I want to throw it over to James. And you guys have a good night, Misfit Shoelace, Monster Lovers, Demons. I fucking love you. Have a good night.
Yeah, Coast to Coast was a great show. I listened to that quite a bit when I was younger. One thing I always loved about it was no matter what the person on the phone said, Art Bell never told them they were full of shit. Like he always listened, which was insane to me. Because sometimes I'd be listening and I'd be like, "Come on, man, that shit ain't right. That ain't real," But you could say anything. You could go on and say, "You never believe what I just saw. I just saw Superman and Batman wearing flip flops, jump roping with Dumbo, and they're flying through the sky." And Art Bell would be like, "Really? You saw that? That's amazing. Where did you see that at? Tell me more about that." Like, he would just let you go and talk no matter how much outlandish shit it was. And it was one of those things where, in the beginning, because I grew up studying mythologies and paranormal stuff, I loved the old stories. I loved the old lore of vampires and werewolves and the witch trials and all that stuff. I studied all that extensively when I was young. And so it was kind of in my wheelhouse. I would listen to Coast to Coast. I would watch In Search Of with Leonard Nimoy. I don't know if you guys remember that show. Great show. And then History Channel had one called Monster Quest that I absolutely loved. I used to watch that all the time. I've seen every episode of Monster Quest. And those are the kind of the shows that would be entertaining to me. And I started listening to Coast because at first it was kind of a guilty pleasure because the first couple shows I caught were so outlandish that I was like, there's no way any of this is real. This is bullshit. This is absolute bullshit. But it was entertaining to listen to, and Art would always just let the person keep talking. He would never really call them out and say they were full of shit. He would let the audience make up their own mind, which was refreshing because during that time period, that was the time of like Morton Downey Jr. and all that kind of shit, where being a brash asshole of a host was kind of the thing to do back then. And it was cool to hear somebody that would never say he didn't believe you. He would just say, oh, really? That's what's going on. Tell me more about it. And then he'd ask you questions. And it was always interesting to listen to. And I found myself going from at first listening and laughing along with it to starting to listen and sometimes hearing stuff that I was like, well, that might actually be true because I've read this, and this lore says this, and this lore says that, and it kind of matches what this guy is saying. So unless this guy has been in the library studying like I've been studying to know about this lore that nobody's ever heard of before, basically, how would he know that, So, and then it became something that I would just always listen to. And then long after Art was gone, I still listen today when I hear it come on, because they'll still play like the old Coast to Coast with Art Bell sometimes on the radio and stuff, real late at night. And whenever I hear that come on, I always check it out. I'd listen to some with George Norrie as well, but I'm an old school Art Bell guy. That was my favorite to listen to. And this was, a time when you didn't have all of the different shows like you have now. I mean, hell, when we started doing this, you didn't have a whole lot of shows that were doing it. We got into doing this paranormal stuff basically because of that, because both of us grew up listening to Coast and In Search Of and Monster Quest and all those kind of shows. And it was amazing to us. We loved it, So to have the opportunity to get on and talk about that stuff was a lot of fun. And we kind of quickly realized that a lot of the other shows that were out there at the time didn't really know a whole lot of stuff, It was a lot of people that loved the paranormal and they loved talking about it, but a lot of it was more of the new agey kind of horse shit, you know what I mean? It wasn't like lore based or history based or anything like that. And so we started doing the show like, I don't know, 8 years ago, something like that. And we put up a lot of really, really, really interesting, good shows. That's one thing you can say, whether you like us or you don't like us. One thing you can always say about Staring is we are some of the most information-packed shows you'll ever listen to. You're never going to have a clickbait show from Staring. You're never going to have a show where the title says something and you click on it and you get no actual information. That's one thing that drives me freaking crazy, is you'll see a video and you'll be like, oh man, that sounds interesting. I'd like to hear that. So you click on it and it's like 15 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever it is. And you go through the whole thing, you get like 2 freaking dumbass ad reads where the guy's trying to sell you Nord antivirus or some bullshit like that, right? And then you don't actually ever get any information. You get that, you get his Patreon link, you get all the nonsense, but you don't get any actual information you can base anything on. You'll get him saying something and then you're like, okay, well, where's your evidence? How do you back that up? Where's the actual lore? Where's the actual history? Where's something that I can actually sink my teeth into? But it's never there. And then they get off, and it's like, the hell, I just wasted like a half hour of my day. And I didn't learn anything. At least with Staring, every time you listen to one of these shows, you're learning something. Now, you might not always agree, but you can always guarantee that there's going to be good information. And you're going to be able to listen to it and make up your own mind. And kind of where that make up your own mind thing comes from with us is partially from Art Bell, believe it or not. Because that's one thing he used to always do. He'd let you decide for yourself whether something was true. He'd present you the evidence that the guy was saying. He'd say, oh, really? And then he'd let him tell his tale, and then he would ask questions, and you were free to make up your own mind. you know? And that's why one of the reasons we always say that at the end of every show is, here's what we think, here's the evidence that we found. As always, it's up to you to make up your own mind, And that's one thing that I think separates Staring as well, is we give you a hell of a lot of information that you don't get on other shows. And at the end of it, we don't tell you what to believe. This is what I believe. This is what Old Boy believes. This is what the evidence says. You choose what you want to believe. The other part of that comes from the Bible, because it's no secret that I'm a Christian, right? And God gave us free will to choose for ourselves. And I'll never force you to believe anything. I'm going to tell you what the evidence is. I'm going to tell you what the truth is as I see it. And then you make up your own mind, just like with everything else, So I hope you guys enjoyed the show. I hope that you learned something. Let us know down in the comments section when this hits YouTube what you think. Have you seen some of these videos where they talk about Hercules versus Jesus, or Thor versus Jesus, or Odin versus God, or whatever? These videos where they're comparing them. Have you seen some of these videos that I'm talking about where people get on and just feed you nonsense for the whole video and then try to sell you something and then get off and you don't learn shit? I hate that. That drives me absolutely crazy. So let me know down in the comments section what you guys think. As always, it's up to you to make up your own mind. The YouTube channel for those listening on the radio is youtube.com/James Hershey Jr. That's where everything is. You can find every episode of Staring. There's I think 400, somewhere around 400 episodes, give or take a few. Every episode of We're Screwed, the other show that we do on here, there's a couple hundred of those. There's every episode of Tales from the Abyss, which was our TV show that we did for a while. And then I have paranormal news videos where I talk about paranormal things in the news that are going on. Those have been going on for a long time. I don't even know how many of those there are. There might be 1,000 or more by now. There's a hell of a lot of those. There's all kinds of cool stuff. There's thousands of videos on there for you. Everything's free. As always, subscribe to the channel. Check them out. Like the videos if you find them useful. Share them with your friends, whatever you want to do. I don't really give you the YouTuber spiel very often, because I have too much respect for your intelligence to do that. I don't see the reason that they always tell you to like the video and subscribe to the video every time, multiple times, is because they think that you're so dumb that you forget, right? And they literally say that. They'll say, I know a lot of you don't remember to like the video or don't remember to subscribe to the video. It's amazing when I look at my analytics how many of you people aren't subscribed and aren't liking the videos and all that. They think you forget. I have more respect for your intelligence than that. I know that if you find it useful, if you find it interesting, if you find some benefit to it, that you'll subscribe because you want to see more, right? If you like the video, then you'll like the video if you want. If you don't, maybe you won't. Or maybe you do like the video and you never hit the like button because you're just not a person that does that. That's fine too, whatever. I don't really care. If you enjoy the show and you like watching the show, cool. I'm happy to have you. Welcome. I hope that you come back, and hang out with us. Leave me a comment down in the comment section of one of the videos and say hi. We read those. Now, we don't read every single comment all the time. I try to, but YouTube doesn't tell you when you get comments all the time, which kind of sucks. They used to. Used to be whenever you would get a comment, you'd get a notification, and you'd go straight there and you could read it. But now sometimes I'll get a notification that I got a comment on a video, and I go to look at the comment, and then there'll be like 5 or 6 other comments that I never even knew I had from a long time ago that people will say something and I just never get back because I don't even know it's there, So leave me a comment. I'll try like hell to see it, and if I see it, I'll say hi or whatever. Or look us up on social media. We're on Facebook, we're on X, we're on Instagram, all that shit. It's just our names, James Ash and James Hershey Jr. Check us out. Love you guys. I appreciate you guys. As always, up to you to make up your own mind. I thank you for joining me, and hopefully you enjoyed the show. Let us know down in the comment section also if there's anything you'd like for us to do a show on. Some subject matter that we haven't talked about yet that maybe you would find interesting and you want to get some actual information on. We've done several shows in the past that people have asked for in the comment section. So if there's something that you do want to hear, let us know. Okay? Love you guys. Appreciate you guys. And we'll catch you on the next one. Till we speak to you again. Love many. Trust few and do harm to none. God loves you, and so do we. Bye-bye.
In order for the light to shine so brightly, the darkness must be present. Tune in every Monday at 10 o'clock for Dark Sun Rising on the ParaX Radio Network.
Hey, this is Lee.
And this is Michelle.
And this is Dustin from the Dead Zone.
Your source for everything paranormal, ParaX.